Today we're going to talk about a topic that plagues most of us in the development world that has everything to do with remote work. So if you're a freelancer, a consultant, or just a remote employee, this topic pertains to you. So there's a lot of discussion around how to be an effective sort of remote worker. And so that will be the topic that we discuss today. Just tips that I've learned over the years as to how to be the most effective when you are separate from your team and or remote. The main goal of this has everything to do with making the lives of your clients easier, right? Making their workload, making their pain points easier. So once you grasp that entire concept, this will be better suited to kind of move the conversation forward for you. So tip number one in how to be the most effective remote worker, employee, and or consultant is to create a schedule. A lot of times, since you are working remote and separate from the team, they have their own schedules for meetings, for retrospects, for stand-ups, things of that nature. And you want to ensure that either you can accommodate or you let your employer know that there are times that you are available and that you aren't available. You want to be mindful about that and create a schedule around that. And that includes like check-ins, when, what days, what time you will be available to check in with them and kind of go over some of your work. So if that's a Tuesday, Thursday, Friday thing, if that's every weekday at 11 a.m. that you're available for check-ins, stuff like that. If it's, a variation of that, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you're there for check-in and then a demo on, Thursday or something like that. Either way, you can set and create a set schedule that the clients that you have can adhere to. Because the one thing you do, you make it easy for them to either model their meeting times and schedules around that, or they can accommodate you in some way. So that's tip number one. And a lot of people kind of stray away from that, but just be mindful of that. It's kind of like a doctor's appointment or anything else. As long as you're clear and you let people know about your time and your availability, you can accommodate pretty much any situation. Bonus tip for those of you who are pretty much senior in the freelance space is try to schedule or plan visit times. So if you're constantly working remote, try to every 3 months, 6 months, annually, try to schedule a time where you can go and visit the location, visit the team, kind of have lunch, things of that nature, because that would actually help with tip number two. So tip number two for how to be an effective remote freelancer is to build rapport with the team. I know sometimes people question this because you are working remote, whether it's home or a coffee shop or across the globe. But never dismiss building rapport with people and or teams, because it helps the process and or the workload move along faster. You can do this a lot of ways. I'm sure there's a chat function with today's technology, whether there's a Jira HipChat or there's Slack, or there's a lot of different communication tools where you can kind of keep up with the communication. You guys can talk about things, you can expand your knowledge on things, and all else fails, there's a phone call at the end of the day. The key is to make time for that. It's easily said that you can do that, and there's tools out there to ensure that you do it, but you have to be willful and mindful enough to make time for it. So that is a tip about building rapport with teams and how to do that. That's tip number two in how to be effective as a remote freelancer and or worker. Let's move on to tip number three. So tip number three in how to be an effective remote freelancer is to do something that most social media does to us, and that is over communicate. You want to over communicate everything. And I don't mean in an obnoxious way. I mean in a clear, transparent, and consistent manner. So a lot of people think that when they're struggling, when they're working remote and they're struggling with problems, they don't want to bother the employer or the client that they have. They don't want to bother the team members that they're working with. But my suggestion is do that. You can communicate and over communicate deliverables, kind of things that you're working on, explorations, any concerns, any difficulties that you may have when working on a problem. You want to do that. And the reason being is because you let the employer know that you are consistently evolving, not only with the problems and the concerns of the product, but you're evolving enough to share the things that the failures and the problems that you and the challenges you are facing while you're doing and executing on the work. And team members as well as the employer themselves can probably assist you in that. Or you may give a perspective and a bit of insight that they may not have looked at. It's one of those things to be mindful of, and it shows that you are effectively working to ensure a better product and overall goals of your client. So, and I mean that in various forms. When you have vacation times or vacation dates, whether 2 weeks, 1 week prior, like just communicate that. When you're not feeling well and you're about to take a sick day or you want to take half of the day off, communicate that as well. But just be open and transparent with your communication. That way, no one has to question and or guess what you're working on and if you're being effective while being away. So those are my top 3 tips on how to be an effective remote freelance worker. There are plenty more. And at some point, I might put together a full guide as to what that looks like to help you guys if you are struggling or if you have questions and concerns about it. But I'd just like to say the goal, let's dialing back to the goal of things. You are not separate from the entire work or the team. You're just working in a different location. So just be mindful of that as well. And try to approach this as you want to lift the burden of the team that you're working with. You want to make things easier because you're in a different location. So as long as you keep that as your goal, everything else will kind of fall into place. You will communicate about, times you want off. You'll communicate about things that you're struggling with, one-on-ones, vacation time. You would be open to a lot of these things that will help move the needle forward to help you be seen and viewed as a contributor, a major contributor to the product and the team. Okay, so that's all I have today for how to be an effective remote worker. If this helps you in any way, please like the video, give it a thumbs up. I'll be sure to share a lot of different tips. I do have a tip on building rapport, so I'll link that in the description as well. Hopefully that'll help you. And if you had any other questions about things, whether it's how to freelance, how to get clients, things of that nature, let me know in the comments below. I'll be sure to create a video or give you some advice and tips on that as well. Okay, so hopefully this helped you. And then, excuse me, I apologize. My headspace is all over the place. I'm a little under the weather. I got kid cooties, my son. It happens. Anyway, we'll see you in the next one. That's all I can. Peace.